I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Beheading. This time in Algeria, the French are now dealing with a dead French national journalist. His name, Hervé Gourdel. And to explain this story, the significance in Europe, is Olivier Guita, a national security and geopolitical risk reporter from London, watching France respond. The French President Hollande has denounced this as cruel, and we know that France is participating in some fashion in the bombing in Iraq against the Islamic State. What connection is that bombing to this murder of a man named Gourdel, who was kidnapped just recently, but on September 21st, according to the reporting, by Jundal Khalifa? Olivier, a very good evening to you. Jundal Khalifa, that doesn't look like the Islamic State. Is it? Is it a related organization? Explain, please.
Okay. Jundal Caliphate means the soldiers of the caliphate. It's an offshoot of a group called Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb. Al-Qaeda franchises in North Africa. Back in July, there was talk between the leaders of that group either to join ISIS or to stay put and stay with AQ. The minority that decided to go to ISIS funded this group just 10 days ago, called the Soldiers of the Caliphate. And so within 24 hours that ISIS had asked for mostly Western citizens, but mostly U.S. and French to be kidnapped and killed, they snatched this French tourist within a few hours of the call. And they made their demands clear that France had to stop their air raid campaign in Iraq in order for the life of that tourist to be spared. But the credibility of that group was at stake, and I had no doubt that they would go through with their devilish plan. And that changes the whole dynamic of the region and also of the fight against the Islamic State. Because, look, it's the first time outside of Iraq that a group linked to the Islamic State has killed a foreign citizen. So the jihad from the Islamic State is going into Algeria, and France is number one enemy of that group there.
I correct myself, although the photograph shows him riding as if a journalist. He's described as a mountaineer. So this is not a journalist, it's a French tourist. As Olivier says, the puzzle here is this is in Algeria. That is a country and a geography that is alarmingly, historically threatening to France. Does this have significance that the group is in a country that was once, we'd have to say, contributed to the turmoil and the upset of the French government?
Really it is. I mean, if you look at AQIM, Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb, has made clear for the past 8 years that enemy number one was Algeria's regime, but also France. And so they've been trying to pull off terror attacks against France for the past few years. Now, and they kidnapped a lot of French citizens, but their modus operandi was totally different from this new Soldiers of the Caliphate group, because their idea was to get ransom money, which they did. In the past 10 years, they got close to $150 million out of ransom money. But that new group, ruthless and linked to the Islamic State, just wants to make the point that they're not after the money, they're after killing French citizens and Western citizens.
In the reporting here, it says that the group in the video, and the video is meant to be terrifying, and it is, it shows his severed head after their attack. They claim or they pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, which is a nom de guerre, the man who appeared in Mosul in the pulpit many weeks ago to declare the caliphate. Does this complicate the French actions? That's what I want to know about, how the French media is reporting this. Algeria is a source of revolution and challenge to French colonialism in the 20th century. Now it looks to be the basis for recruiting anti-French conduct by men who are claiming to be linked to al-Baghdadi. In other words, I'm getting confused here as to where the allegiances are and where the conflict is. Is this French anti-colonialism, or is this France as part of the coalition in Iraq and Syria?
It's dual because, look, the men that are behind the Islamic State franchise in Algeria are ex-GSPC, which was the former GIA, which was one of the main terror groups that wanted to attack France, and then they joined AQIM. So clearly it is coming from both sides. It is the fact that it's linked to France's military campaign in Iraq, but also linked to the fact that they see France as the main proponent of what they see as an infidel regime in Algiers. So it's a dual reasoning that makes France doubly the enemy. And you're right. The equation is going to change because what you can see happening maybe in the next few months is there are 900 French citizens now in Iraq and Syria fighting in the ranks of the Islamic State. But you could have them go, the next generation, go into Algeria because now it could be seen as one of the main theaters of the global jihad. And that is what is going to be very, very troubling for the French society if you have, dual citizens or just French-born from Algerian extract going back to Algeria to fight the jihad against the French.
One more detail. Hollande has been very active in Francophone Africa. The intervention in Mali and Cote d'Ivoire, the sharp elbows in Niger, all of that has been part of his administration. That was never tied to something like beheading or terrorism. Is that going to change as well?
Not really, because as you said, France has taken the lead, if you will, not only in Africa, but on a lot of the terror theaters as far as fighting the jihadists. So what's going to change is that France might be more prudent about what I said, coming to new groups that are going to be even more radical than what they expect.
Right.
But the real question is how the Algerians are going to handle it. And that's the big one. Algeria spends $15 billion on defense, and they have a large army that is basically trying to track down and kill those terrorists. Now, the question is going to be, the French are relying on the Algerians to do the work. If that is not happening and the Algerians are not victorious, the French will take the decision and the matters into their own hands.
Olivier Guita is a national security and geopolitical risk analyst. He's based in London, watching the gruesome news of a French tourist picked up on the 21st and now murdered by a group that consciously links itself to the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, but is planted inside Algeria. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.